Welcome to the Fremont Canopy Keepers program. Thanks for everybody to come out and take a look at this lovely program that we have coming up here. A little quick background here. We like to thank Nebraska Conservation, Connor over here, to get it planned and have a nice little public meeting for everybody to come in. I'd like to, of course, thank the Dr. McKnights with their help to actually come into my office to get this going. And that's what it takes sometimes to get a program going. Their commitment to this program is what really started this off. And then also Cifrings. I know Cifrings that also took a factor into there to be able to have Cifrings then partner with us. And then obviously the city of Fremont there to come in. And then UNL Extension, Ian over there, that will help us with the tree care and have some handouts from here. It's a great program, like I said. The very beginning part here is you can plant in the backyard and in the front yard. Nothing in easement this year. We're going to just kind of start in the front backyard, and then maybe next year we can look at both easements and front and backyard. This program also is tied in with Friends of the Park. They are a nonprofit that helps out our park systems and everything. They're the ones that help hold the funds to be able to keep donating to this program. So if you know anybody that says, oh, hey, I would like to help out with this program, Friends of the Park is the ones that actually helps hold the funds to be able to continue this program. With this due, I would like to offer the McKnights to come up and give a few words and have them give you a thank you to get going.
We're so pleased that everybody's here. Growing up in town, I always wanted to be on a farm, and we were able to buy a tree farm, so it's been in my genes. And we've noticed biking around Fremont, Evelyn's a great biker, that we're losing our canopy. We used to have an arborist, Nolan, years ago that helped. We had a program in Fremont where you could purchase a tree, and I think those maybe were only in the. And so we had this dream of, you know, with urbanization, with global warming, with heat, how do we make a little difference? And just for our own enjoyment in our parks and our community, seeing more trees was beneficial. We wandered into the office, and they were so gracious to us, brought everybody together. Every little detail was like, oh, we can work that out. We can work it out. So we appreciate them, that the city, Cifrings, and all the people have been involved. Conservation Nebraska has done some great programs in Fremont, and we've gotten acquainted with Connor. And so he stepped up and said, well, let's have a informational night. So we appreciate our speaker, and we appreciate all of you being here. So let's hear about it.
Thank you. We have an application over here, and then we also have what trees can be planted. That's also on our website, on our Parks and Rec website. You go to programs, you'll find the links that you can print off an application and see what trees. You fill out the application, then you'll take it to Cifrings, drop it off at Cifrings, and so the cost for the homeowner is $214. That will get you a number 15 container tree. They'll stake it for you, they'll mulch it for you, and they'll install it for you. And the installations will come into June. And then they'll also give you a flag. And then you'll take that flag back after you pick the species of tree that you want. And then you're going to mark it into your yard where you want to place it. This is where that partnership comes in. We get the application back, Parks and Rec does. We have a forestry team. They'll come out to your yard to take a look at where you marked it. They might move it back a few feet here or there, or make sure all the easements are in check so you don't end up planting it too close to a power line, which sometimes we don't think about. And then 30 years down the road, our utilities have to be cutting through the utility lines. So that's where that will help out with that part of it. There are some, you can select any deciduous tree, except for fruit trees, Japanese maples, and evergreens. Those are off the list, but there's a 3-page list. It's pretty awesome to see. Other than that, that's really everything that we have. make sure you grab the application. We only have a few applications here tonight. But if you don't like jumping on the website, grab an application here right now tonight. And we're going to introduce Ian from UNL Extension to come in and talk about tree maintenance. And we will then have any questions and answers.
So I might say there will be a watering bag. With the tree. They will not be guaranteed, so it will be the homeowner's responsibility. Siblings will give you all the information on how to do it. And I think it's pretty unique to be able to go on a nursery lot and pick out any tree that's there, because most programs are 2 trees, 3 trees, 5 trees. So that, I think that'll really give us some diversity in the community.
Yes.
And they're good sized trees. I think
Yep, they're inch to inch and a quarter diameter.
Yeah.
I believe, I don't know,
Some may be up to you.
Yeah, so they're a good sized tree.
Without looking at the list, are they are
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we're gonna make sure it plants into the Midwest area. Yeah. I can't believe he doesn't have copies on. I'm guessing it's not on that list anyway, but we'll let Ian come up and get this built, and we'll have some questions and answers.
Thanks. There are 2 aspects right at the top, so if you want your cotton, just get your aspects. My name is Ian Peterson. I'm the horticulture educator for UNL Extension. I basically help people with their landscape questions, their bug questions, things like that. I'm really happy to be invited here tonight to talk about just bringing more trees to the community. Granted, we are a prairie state, but trees are really important for, as Dr. McKnight was saying, for our health, being able to get outside and enjoy our landscapes, enjoy our parks, enjoy our cities, bringing up the idea of the climate change and shifting. And so as we are clearly getting warmer, having a little bit more canopy cover really maintains just kind of a nice constant temperature, shading out some of the pavements and non-plant areas that we have more and more of every year, and really just kind of helping make it a nicer place to live. The other side of what I do is focusing on, as the question was somewhere, about the natives. So I focus on native plants, native pollinators. And so having that habitat, a single tree, is a world in and of itself for both the soil organisms, but also for our insects that are critical for our pollinators, our beneficial insects. When we look at those predators for our pests, and then bringing in even larger organisms and predators like our birds and our squirrels and our, might not like them, but raccoons and possums and things like that. The things that really do make a habitat ecosystem, being able to turn our landscapes, our parks, our cities, our areas into that is pretty awesome. So I'm really happy that this has been started. It's really awesome that I guess I'll be a part of it by you calling me with your questions when you have them. Speaking of trying to head off some of those questions when you're picking up your application in your tree list, I did print out some just kind of little tips and tidbits for getting started with a tree. Before I dive into that, just so I have an idea, who's planted a tree before?
Successfully?
The success part will come on their end. So that's, the first step to planting a good tree is getting it at the right level of the soil. So hopefully, no shade on the planters, no pun intended either, but they will plant it right where it goes. And so really it's just about maintaining it early in its life so that it can grow healthy, making sure that it has an opportunity to be as healthy and strong as possible. A healthy plant is a strong plant, and so it's going to be able to fend off those diseases, those pests, if it has the ability to grow how it wants to grow. And so just, you're provided with so much besides a great deal on a tree. You've got the mulch, you've got potentially the water bags, but a lot to help set you up. So when you do have that new tree, it's important to have that mulch ring around it. And as it grows, maintaining that mulch ring as best as possible. One of the most, I was just talking about it before most people got here, but one of the biggest dangers to a tree in our landscape is having grass go all the way up to the trunk. Because if you are running a mower or if you're running a string trimmer up next to that tree, especially if it is an inch and a half then you're going to be taking out a significant chunk of that tree, just like when we get cut, when we get gouged. It does take time. It does take resources and energy from us to heal from that lasts that tree's lifetime. And so it is really important that we are taking as best care of these plants as we can. And then in the same vein of, my native landscaping passions and things like that, if you can plant some plants around the base of it, that's really good for it. Because if you have, again, that turf going up to a tree, that the roots of that turf, hopefully it's nice, healthy lawn that you've got going on. But if it goes right up to a tree, it actually blocks a lot of stuff going down to the roots. Air exchange, you need water and nutrients that are going down. And so if you have turf, if you've ever tried to dig a hole in turf, you know that it's about that much of just solid matter, solid plant mass. And so you're really not going to be getting a lot of stuff down those tree roots that it really needs. When it comes to the watering, the first 6 months of that tree's life is probably the most important time to think about how you are watering it to get it to survive as best as possible. So whether you're provided a water bag or not, usually about 1 deep watering a week is good enough for a new tree. Some of the questions that I have people sending me pictures of or calling me about is, why is my new tree, why does it, leaves drooping, leaves falling off? Well, how often are you watering it? Well, I put the sprinkler on it for 30 minutes every other day. It's like, you are drowning your tree. And I've got, people sending me pictures. The soil is wet. What's wrong with my tree? Why is it losing? They do need water, but you can overwater a new plant. Yes, we want to take care of it, and it's our little baby. We want to make sure that it can go out into the world on its own, but it does need to stand on its own at some point. So if we give it nice, even watering deep down into the soil, that will help the roots develop. And as with all of our plants, if we don't overwater and water too frequently, that actually increases its ability to become drought tolerant because it is developing that significant root system. So as it grows, key is watering underneath the canopy. We call that the drip zone. If you think about when it rains, it's going to be dripping on the outside. Watering around that area and watering deeply is going to make sure that your tree is nice and healthy, and it's essentially going to be that drought tolerant. One of the main things that people see nowadays, after a decade or so of not having a good regular season of rain and wondering when it's going to come around again, people see the spring, their tree comes out with a third of it that doesn't have any leaves on it. And you do see those drought effects a couple of years after you have a significant lack of water. An in-ground irrigation system is not enough to water a tree. And so you need to make sure that you're getting a sprinkler or getting a hose on the base of that tree, and then as it grows around the base of the canopy. I've got some instructions on how to do that, and even I think a helpful little picture of a hose with some water coming out of it. Because you don't necessarily need a sprinkler. I call it a heavy trickle coming out of the hose, and so just moving that around the root zone for 45 minutes to an hour. A young tree really gets you that nice deep soaking down into the ground, and then it really should be good for a week. Because if you also think about soaking further down into the ground, the top layer is what's mostly going to be drying out. The rest of it's going to be mostly protected, and so it's hanging out with that moisture in the ground. The mulch on top helps with that. Having some nice pretty landscape plants helps with that as well. When it's young, throw some things that have flowers. You can drop in some annual seeds. No one's going to come after you for putting some cosmos or zinnias around your new tree. But then as it develops, start thinking about it. You can call me for these questions. I love these questions. Ask me what kind of landscape plants you can put around your shade tree, and what kinds of things are going to grow in the shade, because turf doesn't grow very well in the shade. And zinnias don't really grow that well in the shade either. So I can give you plenty of recommendations in 5 to 20 years of what you want to put under your trees. The other thing that covers most of it, for next year, assuming it survives, for next year, remove the staking. So the best practices nowadays that we talk about is take the stake off of the tree after the first year, because if you are staking it, it's the same thing as, well, I don't have a good comparison. It will become much more resilient to the winds that we experience, especially here in Nebraska, if it is not staked after the first year. If it's staked, it doesn't develop that strength against the winds, and so you want to pull those off. It might scare you sometimes. We planted a cottonwood 3 years ago or so, and last year with some of those winds that were coming 60 miles an hour from the south, our cottonwood was 10 feet tall and it was 10 feet wide, but now it's like 20 feet tall. And so, but it's very resilient now because it got almost blown over. It actually was bending in the wind, almost horizontal, but then it came back up and it was all good. So it's a nice, strong tree now. It's worth looking into. Most hardware stores, garden centers, are probably going to have some plastic tubes that you can put around the trunk of the tree. Do that in winter after we start getting above like 50 degrees or so. That will prevent it from chewing from animals during the winter time, getting the bark and potentially girdling the trunk and so then killing your tree. But it's also really handy, especially with smooth bark trees and young trees, to prevent what's called sun scald or frost cracking. Basically, the sun comes out, it might not be 30 degrees, but your trunk is going to be in that direct sunlight. The bark and the inner sap is going to warm up and start to thaw a little bit. As soon as the sun goes down, it freezes. You know how cold it feels after the sun goes down in the wintertime. And so that what that can do is the ice crystals expand and you will crack the bark of the tree. And so that can become a wound that may not be deadly to the tree, but it's certainly not good for it. So it's really important to prevent that from happening. So you put on something like that, and there is a handy picture of that here, just for your reference. Taking it off, we have one that a young tree that we still put one on. I'm probably going to take it off tonight or tomorrow morning for this warm week, but then when it starts getting cold, I'm going to put it back on just to protect it. But you want to take it off once we hit spring, because otherwise you can keep a lot of moisture in there that's going to bring in fungus, bacteria, insects chewing on the bark and things like that. Again, just causing those problems. Yeah. So a lot of pretty good information on there. The one thing that I will say, as you're going through this list, pick out some, they have good information on like colors. It's important if you're getting something that's flowering, pick a color that you like that goes with the palette of your house or whatever you're doing with the motif of your yard. Looking at the size of the height and the width. So depending on where you're putting it, if you're putting it, there are some understory trees actually in here, willows and redbuds and things like that can go underneath other trees. But if you look at something like the list of crab apples that they have, some of them are 6 to 10 feet tall, some of them are 20 feet tall. So make sure you're doing your research on that. But then also take a look, once you pick what you think you want, do a little bit of a deeper dive on the tree itself, because there are some, like I say, the redbud was the one that stuck out to me. Is a good understory. It does fine in full sun, but it's just something to consider that if you have a shadier spot, there are some options for you. And then also, like I said too, there's willows on the list which prefer a little bit wetter soil. And so whether it's a willow or whether it's a birch or a beech, make sure that you have the conditions that are going to help it be as successful as possible. If you are on a hill or you know that you have soil that drains really fast, get something like the oaks. I didn't look at exactly everything, but something that's going to be a little bit more drought tolerant. But if you do have a spot that stays wet, or if you know that you can keep the soil moist around it as the tree grows, for like a willow or a birch or a beech, then you can pick that one to your heart's desire. But yeah, other than that, I think that's what I've got. Questions about any of that? My phone number and my email are on. Thanks, Ian.
Where are you at? Where are you going? Where's home?
Right across the street from the airport.
So you're on 330.
Yes.
Yeah, on, it's UNL Extension.
Yeah, it says Dodge County Extension, big N on it, right next to the NP. How about that?
That almost sums up our program, but hey, thanks for that great information. That's gonna help us a lot. When we're trying to finish it up, just as we talked again, I think we visited in November. So we wanted to try to get it moving as fast as we could to try to get it into that springtime. So it worked quite well to get everybody on board to make it work. Thanks for all the partnerships to make it work. Friends wants to get maybe people don't realize, but Parks and Rec, we have 6 departments in Parks and Rec, and forestry also falls in there, and we only have 3 forestry guys. So it made it pretty hard for us to try to plan everything. So then Tom and Evelyn were kind enough to say, hey, let's call Jim Friends and Jim. And I don't know if he told you, but I hope he told you, because it was it was great for us that they were allowed to then that they could plan for us, because we wouldn't be able to our parks couldn't maintain all those kind of trees, because we're going to plant 30 trees alone in just parks and stuff. So everybody's partnership was a great thing. Appreciate everything. I hope you guys enjoy this program and spread it to other people to get this out. It's a great way to get going, to make the canopy come back, as they said. And now we'll take, I don't know if the forestry, Nebraska forestry. Yeah. Graham. Okay. So Graham, he's from our Nebraska forestry. I've never met him before, so I knew he was coming.
Yeah.
So Ian and Graham, if there's any questions, now would be a good time to come up. We'll have some Q&As with these guys. These guys are probably a little more stronger in the forestry department that can give you all those tips. So, yes.
I'm not from Fremont, but my trees are all dying, so before you guys. I've got some little parties. I'd like to see if you've ever seen anything like this before, so please tell me before I spend all your money.
That's well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I have a Fremont tree question. I have an ash in the right of way along
Yes.
Peterson. And one of the tree guys told me last summer that you're systematically getting rid of all of those.
Yes. Now, here's where some misinformation has been over the years. A right-of-way tree is what everybody calls a right-of-way tree. It's technically an easement tree. It's technically your tree to take care of, not the city's to take care of, and I think that's where the miscommunication has been throughout the years. If it's an ash, if it was like the disease, like the ash boreland disease,
It's healthy.
then we won't touch it if it's not diseased.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yes.
I understood that
No.
you're just gonna systematically.
No, now if it became diseased, yes, then it would be an emergency. Once again, sorry, no, we wouldn't take it out. It'd be an emergency. No,
So then you would tell me not.
correct. If we see it has that for, we'd contact it by letter and try to get a hold of you first by person.
That's good. I
Yes.
didn't want it to go away.
No, we're not gonna just come and take every ash. But if ash boreland comes back into Fremont area, we don't see too many. If we catch it as soon as we can, we'll remove that tree to get it out of there as quick as we can.
Has it been in Dodge County?
It had like 5 years ago. It was 5 or 6 years ago. It was, but they tagged and got most of them out of there.
Yeah, it's never gonna be gone from Fremont.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we see something, we'll put an emergency on to, yes, but no, we wouldn't remove it. The homeowner would still have to remove
Thank you
that part of
for
it.
not taking it.
No, if it's healthy, we don't wanna mess with it.
There are effective treatments to prevent the tree from becoming infested, so just get a hold of a certified arborist to find out what those treatments are gonna cost and whether that seems to make sense with, your priorities and your
If you wanna
plan
do
for the
it.
tree. Yeah.
Yeah, but the city won't treat. They don't use the treatment. You'll have to get a hold of a tree service company.
I have a question about that treatment. It's a systemic poison, right? So it saves the tree, but all the wildlife bats, insects will have nothing to do with
Exactly. It is literally
That's just
injected
how
into the
it's
tree.
like.
Well, it's much better than the entire landscape taking the burden of that insecticide being applied externally. The damaging part about emerald ash borer is that immature stage that's inside the tree. The adults, they just chew on leaves a little bit, and it's not really much of a problem. It's that immature stage where they're a little, worm or bug looking thing there inside the tree that are, they're chewing away basically the veins of the tree, the vascular tissue that's moving water and nutrients throughout. So that's the devastating phase. So we're able to put that product into the tree. No non-target insects are affected that way. And so it's really nice from that standpoint.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's, I didn't understand that when I had on the tree, I had a 3rd-year ash tree.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the birds and the bats and
Mhm.
everything was gone from it. The tree is alive.
Yeah.
So that's the,
Now,
and
what-
I just plant other.
Right. And what's worth remembering is that all trees die eventually, right?
Yeah.
And so we can prevent the tree from succumbing to one particular thing, but age and catches up with all of us. And so we're not preventing the tree from dying altogether, just protecting it from that one insect.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Any other questions?
I have, big silver maples, I've had one cut down, but I have to have that stump removed before planting another tree in my front yard, or would it be possible to plant a new tree and leave that stump there until I have time to get someone to take
Is
it
it
out?
in the easement or is it in your?
It's in the yard,
In your yard.
it's in the yard, it's like a 5-foot round.
Forestry guys.
One of those multi-
Yeah.
Parks Rec.
For
Parks Rec.
specifics, I'd probably defer to Graham, but basically, when you have something like that, and especially a maple, you've got some pretty significant roots that are gonna have to degrade. And so, like, my specific recommendation would be, don't plant anything within 10 feet of that. But maybe there's better advice, but because eventually those are gonna break down, the soil's gonna sink, and so anything that you have planted there is going to be affected by that. So if you've got a tree, you're either gonna end up with a tree, or you're going to have to figure out moving the tree to backfill and then replant it.
So it sounds like you almost need to get that out of the way, so that deterioration stuff.
Even stump grinding wouldn't necessarily take care
That's
of
not
the
good.
roots away from.
Okay, so
But
unless you
I don't know
got,
if you have better advice.
if you don't have 10 feet, then that's not an option.
I
Considering I know where my
knowing
sewer line is. Of course, that got moved,
Yeah,
or replaced, I shouldn't say moved. Those clay lines don't like those sewer.
Yeah, I'd say Ian's right on target for the most part. If you don't have root system physically in the way where you want to plant that tree, you're probably okay. But as you mentioned, the root system from that tree that's gone now is gonna, decompose over time. That'll leave some voids in the soil and things will kind of settle. You may need to come back with more soil over time as that old stump rots and the root system that's attached to it along with it. If you've got limited space, do what you can with the space you have.
So until that breaking down process starts, it's really hard to put a new one in to get it going.
Well, if you've got a spot you want to plant and you start digging there and you're not encountering a lot of root system, you'll probably be okay. Yeah. But most services that grind stumps, they're gonna want to know how deep you need ground, and the price will reflect that, of course. You just need to put some grass seed down afterwards, and they're not gonna go very deep. If you want to plant a tree nearby and you want them to be more extensive with how deep and wide they do that grinding, chasing, roots, then you can have that done as well.
How long would it take those roots to deteriorate?
Yeah, well, the properties of wood vary by species. They all break down at different rates for sure. Really hard to say, how big's the roots, how wet is the landscape?
How many mushrooms are growing out?
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, how decayed is the tree and the root system already? Those are all gonna play big factors, but we're talking years to decades. There are products out there, I think, that claim to accelerate that. I can't speak to how effective they are, Definitely don't do like I've heard people talk about kosher salt and salting your landscape is definitely not a good idea. I don't think that the city would appreciate, burning, your stump in your yard. There's certainly ordinance around open fires.
It's probably gonna need
Yeah. So sometimes you just have to either deal with this thing, over time or mechanically have it paid to be removed.
I would really like to see the city of Fremont take on treescaping along all the sidewalks that have been built on the east side of town. There are no trees going in, so to tie development to planting, I think is really important. And I don't know if that comes from the citizenry or, but you know, Julie and I both lived in a city where when developers put up new structures, they had to put in mid-growth trees. That was
do believe now it's in the comp plan
Yeah.
of that situation now.
Oh,
where if
that's-
new
Yeah, the
development
city
comes,
ordinances now are requiring so many trees.
Oh,
Don't tell me what kind of tree. And I know when it's one of the newer developments, that they town develops the back trees. You can tell that they really didn't plant them
Right.
with landscaping in mind, they just put them in a straight row.
Yeah,
or put them in an island and cultivate.
all the sidewalks are just beautiful that are being built. There are no trees, so
Right.
there's no shade.
And that's because they're the newer yet, and it's gonna take time for those trees to grow as well.
Yeah.
Is this a commercial area?
No, this is
No, it'd be
residential,
new
residential.
development.
I think it'll be next.
residential.
Out on, and on Vineyard Road out to the school.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of live, is in that Day Acres too, not far from that junior high, so that's, and you can sure tell, you know, the newer developments, they just don't, they plant little trees.
Yes.
Well, I'm excited about this program being available for private property because at the Forest Service, our grant dollars are usually restricted to public property. And so, we do have a free trees for fall program that we do, every year, 10 to 12 trees or so. We usually get like a neighborhood association that'll, apply for those trees. So, there could be some partnership there down the road, but we'll let this program do the good work on the private property. And sounds like you might move on to the right of way.
Next year's plan, if we continue to fund this with,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we hope to get it out there to have people help out to move forward.
Yeah.
Maybe we should mention that there's a limited amount that's available this year, so.
Yeah, there's only 50 available.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not infinite,
And it's one tree per applicant,
yeah, so
Right.
get your application.
because it's first come, first served.
Stick around.
Oh, do you have applications here?
Yeah, there are a few over there, but it's on our website, not available. If you wanna jump on there or stop up at City Hall, you can pick one up there, or at Sibley's. They'll have it out there. Yeah, and I know the Parks and Rec take, the 10 free trees and put them in our parks every year.
Yeah.
Like the program helps.
Yeah.
I know some of the federal grants are drawing. And drawing up too, some of the.
Yeah, $70 million. We haven't given up on our Inflation Reduction Act funding. That's still kind of in limbo, but we're moving forward with our project. Hoping the best for that. Yeah. Thank you.
If everyone does.
Yeah.
Any other questions or concerns?
So, Tom from Citrus, would you just, review what I know Ian talked about watering going forward, but this year with the watering bag.
Yeah, I know we've looked into getting some bags. I think that's gonna be the one that's available. It really comes down to, like was discussed, it's that weekly watering. It's pretty simple.
So you
And
can
it's-
just fill up the bag once
It-
a week?
That would give you the option of filling up the bag, or if you're not able to go out there and do your regular watering. But either way, the key is infrequent but deep watering. That first season or 2 seasons, especially when we aren't getting rain, you know, and it's not rocket science, but it has to be done, you know, and it's from the time you can turn on your hose in the spring until you can't run water anymore. That winter watering sometimes is the a critical one that people miss. You know, we'll get that dry winter and ground will crack and the air will get down in there and it's dry. And then the other thing too is if you freeze those trees up in the winter time with water, come spring, when it starts to warm up, that water's already there, frozen, and it slowly melts and it waters the tree right away. So
5 gallons for a 1-inch diameter tree, and when's the week watering? Are you talking?
the way we usually advise, and it's very similar to what we talked about here, is we lay a hose out there, we turn it on a trickle, we say like the size of a number 2 pencil, that water, leave it on there for 45 minutes, an hour, let it soak into the ground, and you won't see water running then.
But don't do
be
like
going
I
right.
did, I forgot.
But, you know, that's better than not watering at all. And, you know, people all the time come to us and say, oh, my tree's not doing well. When we give instructions always when we sell trees, but they'll say my tree's not doing well. I'm turning my sprinklers on. Well, your sprinklers get down about a 1/4 inch into the grass. That's all they're gonna do. So, and you'll see a lush green lawn and it's like, well, it's my yard is wet. No, your yard isn't wet because it's dry as soon as you dig a hole, you know.
Yeah. Nice long screwdriver helps, you know, if that's coming up mucky,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know it's too wet, you know, and so you can kind of get a sense of what's going on below that turf grass root system that you mentioned. It is dense and
I was amazed this summer. I was moving our irrigation system actually, and just 5 feet away from a landscape bed, digging into that turf. 4 inches down, it's dry. It's dry, and there's no root system or anything. It's just pretty crazy. I will say that my favorite watering tool is it's like a little fountain hose end sprayer. It's like $5 at the hardware store. It's about that big, and it just puts out a nice little fountain fan, and you can make it this big for your new tree, or when that tree gets older, you can make it this big around and run it, and it soaks in really well. And having landscape plants or that mulch helps soak in really, really well. So, you know, if you have turf around it, run it a little bit longer, but it will really infiltrate into that soil if it stays mulched.
How big are the bags you're gonna put on and how many?
I don't know, we just kind of got those, I think he's got them on order, I'm not sure exactly what they are. You wanted to see them and see what they're gonna look like before we.
Is there any statistics on utilities with trees shading houses?
Oh, yeah.
oh, certainly, yeah. Matter of fact, I think Arbor Day had a tool for a while where you could type in your address and just sort of hypothetically place trees in different places and see how your energy consumption would change. You want your deciduous trees to the south and southwest of the house. They're gonna shade your house in the summer. They're gonna drop their leaves in the winter and let that sun through to your house. Your conifers more on the north and northwest sides as more of a windbreak per se. That still does work on a small scale to some degree. But yeah, from an energy standpoint, definitely the south and southwest where that hot afternoon sun is coming from is going to be ideal for that benefit.
If you had to pick in Fremont, what would be your favorite trees to put in your yard?
I'd have to look at the inventory so far and see what you have too much of already. Because there are plenty of trees that, you know, you move onto a new block and you look up and down and like, oh, that's really cool. I'm gonna go in and my neighbor, ask him what that is, plant that. And we can't have too much of that because then we're just putting a lot of eggs in a couple baskets. You have, you know, Dutch elm disease, emerald ash borer, you know, we're gonna have some other critter or disease from somewhere else come and take something else out. So a diverse forest is really key. So, you know, color sells. So the things that bloom a lot are really dwarfing our urban forests a lot. We're planting a lot of crab apples, lilac trees that are smaller. They're not going to ever be big shade trees, which is okay as long as we don't rely on that too much. But there's lots of great trees out there. I don't think catalpa gets planted enough. Tulip poplar, I think we can plant around here. There's a lot of wonderful trees that are possible in Fremont and eastern Nebraska in general that we should be planting more of. The oaks were mentioned earlier. We've got probably 2-3 dozen different species of oaks that we can plant, but it's hard to find them sometimes in the nursery. So there's always that as well. Yeah.
I'll say, looking at the list that you have access to once we're done talking, just thinking about things that don't get planted as often. They have a couple of hornbeams available, which are just really neat looking trees. Graham mentioned the catalpa. That's one of my favorites. It's a beautiful flower in the spring. That one, depending on what you're looking for in your tree, it stays a little bit more upright, but it grows really well. And it's just a beautiful tree. They have 7 different types of oaks. I'm a fan of the chinkapin oak. Be careful if you get a red oak, make sure that it stays well watered. Don't put it anywhere that it's going to get a lot of wind and dry out. And then with the tulip tree, just know that it's going to be a couple decades maybe before it flowers. But they're still nice trees.
They
Yep.
look really so cool.
What about fertilizer on your trees?
Don't.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if it was mowing the lawn or leaves or both. But leaving the leaves in your lawn or even mulching them when you're mowing in the fall, that can add up to a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. And an established tree really just needs that water more than anything. It's going to be able to get what it needs through other things. Landscaping, having organic matter breaking down in that soil is going to provide enough nutrients. It's really just, especially what we're seeing, like I said, with the established trees, having that water to help it fill back out once it gets big is the most important. So, if you want to, a light fertilizer every other year, but yeah.
You suggest not, is what you're saying?
They don't really need it.
Okay.
What about something like miracle? Is that considered a light fertilizer?
Well, it would be like in terms of the application rate of what's on the product that you buy. So, like, I'm trying to think. I have like the blue crystal-y 20-20-20. It's a Schultz or something like that. It'd be a teaspoon of that in 5 gallons of water. Would probably be fine.
Frequency, I mean, once a month?
A year, yeah. But after 3 years, don't.
Yeah. Don't. Real hard.
More it's a waste of money at that point.
What plant, you talked about plants, you talking about annuals or perennials underneath the tree canopy?
Whatever you would like as the homeowner. But certainly there's a lot of really good native shade perennials and partial shade perennials that I don't know what else Cyprian usually offers, but basically any kind of planting in a mulch ring around a tree is good for it, especially if you like leave it over the winter or in the fall when you're cleaning up, just cut it at the base and let it hang out and break down. Yeah.
What are some examples, like daffodils, tulips, what kind of stuff?
Those would be good at the start. So for the first 10 years of its life, the canopy is really not going to be shading that much stuff out, depending on what type of tree you get. A crab, a catalpa, those grow a little bit faster. But you can do something like those bulbs. Once you start getting a little bit shadier, moving into like, there's a couple really neat goldenrods that are shade tolerant. Sedge, I'm really big on sedges because they're wet, dry, sun, shade. There's a ton of different native sedges to Nebraska and just the Midwest region. There's one plant called turtlehead that's just a really cool flower. It's about yay high, shade tolerant, relatively drought tolerant, flowers in the fall. Most people know bee balm, that's relatively shade tolerant, especially in some of these, if you plant them early enough, as the tree grows, it'll become a little bit more accustomed to it. Now, once it gets really deep shade, you're basically looking at sedges. But there's a couple of options that I don't like from the top. Geraniums are another good one.
Were you planning to plant these trees in the fall?
June is the plan to put.
Okay.
That kind of works with everybody's schedule to make it work.
Okay.
And Graham mentioned, you don't want sometimes the same species going in there, and we get that question a lot. Going, hey, I saw my neighbor plant this, I want this one in there. Kind of say the same thing. We want to pollinate something different. reach out to Friends or a tree service to see what else is out there. And the reason why we didn't start the right of way here is hopefully, for the easement, we're hoping to get that inventory all through the city this year. And then we can, when people come to us next year, we can say, this is what's in this street right here, let's pick something different. So that will help us in the future.
One thing that I forgot to mention, it's on the sheet, but, when you're mulching or reapplying your mulch, make sure that it is away from the base of the tree. Similar to the tree wrapping, you don't want things living on the tree itself. And so that keeps airflow, moisture down.
And not walking on.
Exactly.
I have a lawn, a sidewalk, a little bit of lawn in the street. Who owns that little bit of lawn? Is that a right of way? Yeah.
Even if it's a right of way, it is an easement. It is still your property. It's just an easement that we're there if something needs to be taken, a new street, something, it's there, and then your easement will move back. But
Can I do what I want to do with that?
there is,
What I want to do.
there is code in it, there's an ordinance, what you can put like truck wise and stuff in an easement.
Traffic safety concerns.
Correct. So I'd say jump on the municipal code, because I don't know all the easement part of it, I just know the tree part of it, what can go in, what can't go in. But there's some stuff about shrubs and stuff what can be put in. Yeah, basically it's grants visibility and stuff that could cause an issue. Anything else?
Like nothing off the curves, 12 inches high.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
That's the first time I've ever heard clover being cool.
I love it. I don't get it.
I just look at this, if something's planted incorrectly, you'll probably be contacted. Any other questions or? Like I said, please get this out to other people that you run into. It's a great program. Once again, thanks for stopping it, because if you didn't stop in, I probably wouldn't even thought 2 cents of it, but it's a great program to get moving in Fremont. Thanks guys for setting this up like again. And any questions, just reach out to Parks and Rec or Ian or Connor or Graham. They're all, you guys are linked in with UNL emails, but even if you get a hold of us, we'll get a hold of Ian or Graham or Connor anytime. So thanks for coming out.
Where's the Forest Service located? I mean,
Well, yeah, so our Forest Service is in the university system. So my office is at Douglas County Extension.
okay.
But I cover all the way to 183